Lincoln is a cathedral city in English East Midlands and the county town of Lincolnshire, England. The name Lincoln may come from the Iron Age period, when the settlement is thought to have been named in the Brittonic language of Iron Age Britain's Celtic inhabitants as Lindum, the pool, presumably referring to Brayford Pool. It was founded as a Roman Legionary Fortress during the reign of Emperor Nero, or possibly later. Lindum Colonia was the Latin name for the settlement. Lincoln is the birthplace of the tank. The Tank Memorial pays tribute to the engineers that worked together to invent the tank in 1915. William Foster & Co. was a Lincoln company in the early 20th century and was instrumental in the invention of the tank, a machine that is said to have cut short the World War I and saved millions of lives. The Fosse Dyke Canal may be the oldest canal in England that is still in use. It is usually thought to have been built around 120 AD by the Romans. The Brayford Pool is a natural lake formed from the widening of the river Witham. It was used as a port by Romans who connected it to the river Trent by constructing the Fosse Dyke. Sited next to the Brayford Pool, this sculpture designed by Andy plant chimes each hour using the water running through it. This street art by French artist Jabot depicts the Lincolnshire-born physicist Sir Isaac Newton gazing at the spectrum of light. St. Benedict's Church is a small stone building set off High Street in the center of the shopping area in Lincoln. It is an attractive setting with a splendid war memorial outside it with flower borders. Dedicated to Jesus' companion Mary Magdalene, this parish church is a Grade II listed building. Built in 1798, Ellis Mill is the last working windmill in Lincoln, out of the 9 windmills that once stood on the Lincoln hilltop. These rows of timber-framed shops on the high bridge that you see today date from about 1550. Designed by artist Stephen Broadbent, the Empowerment is a public sculpture that spans the River Witham in Lincoln's City Square. It takes the form of two aluminium and steel human figures reaching to each other across the water. The design is intended to echo the shape of turbine blades in recognition to Lincoln's industrial heritage. The High Bridge carries the high street across the River Witham in Lincoln. It is the oldest bridge in the United Kingdom, which still has buildings on it. The bridge was built about 1160 AD, and a bridge chapel was built dedicated to Thomas Becket in 1235. The chapel was removed in 1762. This narrow opening underneath the High Bridge is known as the Glory Hole. Back in the Middle Ages, however, it was often referred as the Murder Hole. According to the local legend, whenever a body was thrown into Witham, it would be washed ashore here. Home to the city council meetings and the heritage of Lincoln's local politics, this early 16th century town building forms an archway over the main high street. The Guildhall has been used since its construction in 1520, occupying the whole second floor of the stone bow. The word stone bow comes from the ancient Norse word stenibogi, which means stone arch. The plaque commemorates the English mathematician George Boole. Born here in Lincoln in 1815, he helped establish Boolean algebra that is basic to the design of digital computer circuits. One of the oldest and most important domestic dwellings in England, the Jew's house has traditionally been associated with the thriving Jewish community in medieval Lincoln. It is thought to have last belonged to Belasset, daughter of Solomon of Wallingford, before the expulsion of the Jews from England in 1290. Located adjacent to the Jew's house, the Jew's Court is a Grade 1 listed 13th century building. Now a historical bookshop, it is traditionally thought to be on the site of a medieval synagogue. The steep hill first became used by the residents of Lincoln when the city was called Lindum Colonia, and the Roman inhabitants decided to expand the settlement down the hill. The cobbled street, with a 16.12-degree gradient, was voted Britain's Great Street in 2012 by the Academy of Urbanism and named the fourth steepest street in England by the Ordnance Survey. Lined with historical buildings, independent shops, tea rooms and restaurants, it leads to the Lincoln Cathedral, Lincoln Castle and the Cathedral Quarter. Set on the cobbled streets with a quaint yet historic atmosphere, the Cathedral Quarter is both unique and vibrant. Castle Square nestles between Lincoln Cathedral and Lincoln Castle. Located at the cathedral end of the castle hill is the Exchequer Gate. To call this lovely building a gate doesn't convey a sense of how grand the structure really is. This is where tenants who rented property from the church came to pay their rents. A checkered cloth was used to aid counting of the rent, and it is from the alternating black and white pattern of the cloth that we get the word Exchequer. The gate was built in the 14th century and probably acted as the main ceremonial access point to the cathedral close. Lincoln Cathedral, Lincoln Minster or St. Mary's Cathedral in Lincoln is a Grade 1 listed cathedral and is the seat of the Anglican Bishop of Lincoln. Construction commenced in 1072 and continued in several phases throughout the High Middle Ages. Like many of the medieval cathedrals in England, it was built in the early Gothic style. Although considered doubtful by some, Many historians claim it became the tallest building in the world upon the completion of its 160 meters high central spire in 1311. If so, it was the first building to hold that title after the Great Pyramid of Giza and held it for 238 years until the spire collapsed in 1548 and was not rebuilt. Had the central spire remained intact, Lincoln Cathedral would have remained the world's tallest structure until the completion of the Washington Monument in 1884. The cathedral is the fourth largest in the UK in terms of floor area at around 5,000 square meters after Liverpool, St. Paul's and York Minster. The Lincoln Castle is a major Norman stronghold built high upon the ancient Roman fort during the late 11th century by William the Conqueror. The castle is unusual in that it has two moats. It is one of the only two such castles in the country, the other being at Lewes in East Sussex. The first moat to the southeast of the castle holds the square observatory tower, which was built in the 11th century. The castle remained in use as a prison and a court into the modern times and is one of the better preserved castles in England. The crown courts continue to this day. The second moat to the southwest of the castle holds the Lucy's Tower and was built in the 12th century. Court hearings have taken place within the grounds of Lincoln Castle since the castle was built in the 11th century. The Crown Court is a judicial facility located on the western side of the grounds of Lincoln Castle and is a Grade II listed building. The building was designed by Sir Robert Smurke in the Gothic style and was built at a cost of £40,000. It was completed in 1823. This statue of King George III was once part of a full-height statue placed on top of the Dunstan Pillar in 1810 in celebration of King's Golden Jubilee. Lincoln Castle was used as a prison during the 18th and 19th centuries. In 1787, the prison was built inside the castle and later extended. The Victorian prison was designed for the separate system, an isolating regime that kept prisoners apart from the corrupting influence of their fellow prisoners. Men, women and children as young as 8 were held here from 1848 to 1878 for crimes ranging from stealing a waistcoat and Bible to highway robbery and murder. During this time, 7 murderers were hanged at the castle and their bodies were buried in Lucy Tower, where their graves can still be seen today. The separate system chapel in the Victorian prison is the only surviving example in the world. It was designed to keep prisoners apart even during worship. Magna Carta is probably the most famous document in English history. Lincoln has been home to one of the 4 surviving Magna Carta originals since its creation. The Great Charter was sent to Lincoln Castle soon after King John had signed it and was read out at the Sheriff's Court. It has been safely stored in the cathedral's treasury ever since until now. It was originally issued by King John and his barons in 1215. Its original purpose was to end hostilities between many of the barons and King John by limiting his power. The charter established the principle that not even the king is above the law. After a huge renovation within Lincoln Castle, the Magna Carta and the Charter of the Forest from 1225 are now kept on display in the new secure vault under the castle. This is the only place in the world to see both charters together in one place. The medieval wall walk is a journey through the history of Lincoln and a vantage point for spectacular views across this beautiful city and surrounding countryside. The Great Stone Curtain Wall is one of the most dramatic features of Lincoln Castle today and a permanent reminder of its role as a mighty medieval stronghold. Lucy Tower, originally one story higher, enclosed the constable of the castle's living quarters, which were constructed in timber. It was named after Lucy Bolingbroke, the Countess of Chester, and was once home to the constable of the castle. The tower's east and west wing have not survived. In the early 19th century, the tower became a burial ground. Graves of prisoners who were hanged at the castle still lie within. Visitors can walk the full circumference of the castle wall, an impressive third of a mile long. Westgate Water Tower is a historic tower dating to 1911 AD. It is a Grade II listed building. The Cobb Hall defended the castle's northeast corner from the 13th century onwards. The tower's vaulted ceilings also suggest that Cobb Hall might have been used as a chapel as well as a dungeon. Between 1817 and 1859, executions by hanging took place on the roof. Vast crowds gathered below the castle walls to watch each of the 38 condemned prisoners meet their fate on the wooden gallows. The observatory tower's turret, added in the early 19th century, sits atop the original medieval stonework. Lore suggests that the castle has also been used for astronomy. The tower is believed to be named after John Meriwether, an early 19th century prison governor who was an enthusiastic astronomer and liked to stargaze from the top of the tower. Climbing to the top of the tower is something not to be missed. It gives a breathtaking panoramic view of the city of Lincoln.